5.
It's time for Hawkfanatic on 1630 KCJJ, brought to you by Deary Brothers Ford on Mormon Trek in Iowa City. Hawkeye Title and Settlement, run by the ever-capable Steve Anderson and his crew. Mike's E-Keys for Cars, GT Car and Supple's Building and Remodeling, 1-800-800-ROSE and Hawkeye Courier. The Midtown Family Restaurants, Harty and Stocker Jewelers in downtown Iowa City. Diamond Dream Sports Academy, Senior Benefits, Premier Automotive in North Liberty, the Oxyoke Inn in the Amanas, Streets Maintenance, Dr. Lance Forbes, and Diamond Dental in Cedar Rapids, and Big Dog Tech Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us, Tommy Lang and myself, Pat Harty from Hawkfanatic.com.
We are here. We are going to talk Hawkeye sports for almost an hour.
Yes.
Then we got the Liberty game against Johnson at the top of the hour.
Yes.
John Stun.
Yep.
So we'll be going to the state tournament in Des Moines with Ray Gilmore here in a little bit.
And then Wednesday we will be doing another hour of Hawkfanatic, and then we've got the two-way game.
And Suter will be back for Wednesday's show, and Captain Steve texted me last night. He's going to try and make it back next week, at least part-time.
Good.
So he may be back for one of these segments. So if you're one of those people who said, we don't like it when you talk politics on that show, your honeymoon is almost over. As the captain will be back.
And he'll have lots to say.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. So where do we want to start? You want to start with the women's game yesterday?
Why don't we?
Talk about that. The Hawkeyes won. It was a tie game at halftime, but they wound up pulling away in the second. 8-2 in their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row. Going into the Big Ten tournament, they'll be playing on Wednesday night about 7:30. They're the last of 3 games that day, so it's not an exact tip-off time. But
right.
The Hawkeye website, the official Hawkeye Athletic website, says 7:30 on Peacock. Break it down, Pat.
Against Wisconsin?
Yeah, I got the wrong microphone on. Go ahead.
They'll be playing Wisconsin again.
Playing them again.
As the number 11 seed.
They're the 11 seed.
They would have been 10, but Oregon needed to beat Washington, which didn't happen. So, 11 seed.
Washington beat Oregon.
Yeah.
That surprised me.
Well, I think you're thinking of the men.
Oh, you're right, I am.
It was
Jan Jensen had a comment about Washington was the only team we didn't have any trouble with.
It was at Washington. It was at Washington, too, so that makes a difference. So, yeah, I think they're going to beat Wisconsin. Then they could get a couple wins out of the Big Ten tournament. Maybe they can avoid being a 8. I think they're going to be a 7 seed, possibly if they can win at least one game in the tournament to avoid the 8-9 seed, but we'll see.
So how do you go from being an 11 seed in the Big Ten to being like a higher seed in the NCAA? Is this a non-conference strength of
because there's
schedule?
a lot of non-Big Ten Power 5 teams in the tournament because of teams that win their conferences. Like the team that wins the Missouri Valley,
right?
Iowa's going to be seated above them,
right?
Because that's just the way it works. There's nearly half the field is automatic bids from smaller conferences, and they get seated lower. That's why you never see a Big Ten team, men or women, seated 13th, 14th, 15th, because there's just not enough spots for them to go that low. Usually the lowest I've seen a Big Ten team, and I may be missing a few, is like 11 or 10. You usually don't see them much below that. And the fact that they finished 10-8, I think that helps their NCAA tournament seed a lot, too. I'll be surprised if they're below an 8 seed. Now, if they go and lose Wednesday, that may not look good. That may put them back on that 8-9 type seed, but I don't think they're going to lose to Wisconsin. I just think they're a better team.
Let me re-ask my question because I'm just trying to. I don't look at this. Don't have the standings in front of me. But if I was the 11th seed in the Big Ten, does that mean that 11 Big Ten teams get in?
They're going to get
okay.
I've heard people say they could have 12.
Is it because he expanded?
Well, it's just that, and they just want Power 5, the higher teams that play the tougher schedules have the higher net rankings and all that. Yeah, there'll be at least 10 or 11 Big Ten teams in the tournament. Hell, the men will have anyone 500 or better from their men are going to make it. So that's just the way it is now. You get so many teams in what is it, 68 now? You're going to have a lot of Power 5 teams that finish about 500 in their conference. That's the breakoff point. If the Iowa men were 10 and had a chance to be 10-10, they'd probably make the tournament. But obviously that's not going to happen.
So where does that stand now with because this seems more a question for you than Adam, but with Nebraska losing at home to Minnesota, which I don't think a lot of people saw, how does that affect?
Well, now
Iowa
needs to win,
okay.
And they just need to win. They could win one more game and still lose out because USC, Minnesota, and Northwestern all have. Well, Minnesota and USC definitely have I'm not sure they split with Northwestern. I'm not sure which the next would it be margin of victory in the 2 games. If that's so, Northwestern would have the edge. But USC and Minnesota both have the tiebreaker over. And USC has 6 wins. I'm not sure who they have left, But Minnesota won their 7th game. So, I mean, right now it looks like Penn State, Washington, and then either Iowa or maybe USC. But Iowa's got to beat either USC or Nebraska at home. Nebraska looked terrible the other day. I can't believe they lost that game. But we'll see. Is this Adam?
I don't know. We'll find out. Hello?
No, it's not. I was just going to ask you, did you say that the game's going to be on Peacock?
The tournament game is,
The first game is, the first round.
Oh, for goodness sake, I thought it'd all be on Big Ten.
Well, it's an 11 versus 14.
Yeah, all the Wednesday games are on Peacock, and then from then on it's BTN.
They used to be on BTN Plus that early, weren't they, for a couple of them?
Yeah.
So,
I
mean,
and then
strangle that bird because I don't have him.
Well, there's men's games to be played, too, still. Regular season games will probably be put on the network.
Peacock?
The first round games will be.
Yeah. The first round.
And isn't there a baseball game this afternoon?
Yep, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock tonight at Banksfield.
5 o'clock. That's what I was told.
Playing Luther, right?
Loris.
Oh, it's Loris.
I always get those mixed up.
Is there rain in the forecast?
So we'll
Not
be
tonight.
able to use our ticket from last week.
That I don't know.
Or from
I would imagine.
None of us know.
You'd have to check with the ticket office.
We're
on
just
that.
guessing.
Well, I'll just use it.
There you go. Thanks, Karn.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye.
Yeah, waiting for Adam to call in.
Thursday's games on FS1 and Sunday's games on Fox.
Yeah, weren't the early round games?
How warm is it supposed to get today?
Almost 60.
Oh, almost 60? Okay, then 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it's supposed to clear off and get sunny later this afternoon, then the rain's supposed to come in overnight.
They lost to Loris a couple of years ago. Remember that?
I remember that.
God, yes.
Yeah. Well, this isn't good now before we get that call. Wasn't Washington State 0-8 going into the series?
Yeah.
And they won the first 3 games? Mm-hmm. Oof. That can't be good.
Well, Iowa's 4-6 right now. No, I mean, they're not playing very well right now. I mean, their starting pitching's, for the most part, has been pretty solid, but everything else has been an issue. I mean, Washington State did lose to some good teams, but they also lost to some teams that aren't that good. So, yeah, I'm not going to make any early judgments yet, but this is not the kind of start that they envisioned.
No.
And beating Loris today won't galvanize. Now, they need to just avoid losing to Loris because they're not going to be throwing their ace or anything. And this game means the world to those Loris players. And they are college baseball players. Anything can happen, especially in baseball. But, no, they got to get some consistency going with the relief pitching wasn't that good at times. And it's just, I mean, but, yeah, Washington State, when I first was told that, I'm like, no way, they're 0-8. And I looked and, yeah, they were 0-8.
Wow.
Going into that 4-game series.
Do we know when they scheduled that game that's today? Because I only heard about it this morning.
I don't think it was very long ago. That's how Rick is. I don't recall them ever announcing. They had one game they scheduled for February that they canceled, right?
Canceled.
Right.
Then the one this Wednesday they canceled too.
Because of rain or cold?
Well,
A little bit of both.
So what's it going to be Wednesday?
Rain and snow.
Rain
mix
changing to snow.
In the 40s?
In the 40s.
Oh, so it won't snow in the day.
No.
Okay, so, all right. So, and then above freezing all this week?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Okay.
50s tomorrow, low 40s Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have any more of those sub-zero February. Don't you think that's over? I know it's still...
Well, it's March, so no. We will
Yeah,
have
but
no more
March doesn't
February.
usually get that cold.
No.
I mean, March usually has more snow because it snows when it's warmer.
My phone, which sees all and knows all, says 71 next Tuesday.
And then that'll be almost mid-March. And yeah, I mean...
That's what the bug says?
I think wouldn't you agree the worst of winter is over?
I would think so.
I mean, you can see
Coldest and probably not going to get 8 inches of snow again. But that
well, I'm
is
not
more likely.
that I could see happening more than a 5-day stretch of where the highs are like 2 and the lows are minus
that's
20.
done.
I think that's done.
I think that's done.
But it's amazing to think how recent that was, though. It was just 2 weeks ago. We were in a winter grip of February.
It wasn't getting above 5 degrees for like a week.
No. Yeah, it didn't get as bad as that one where it never got above 0 for that one stretch.
For
but
like
no.
a month.
Yeah, that was the worst one I can ever remember.
I think we went a week before we got above freezing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, Pat. It was nothing like it was.
2019, I believe it was.
It was brutal.
That was the coldest stretch I can ever remember. I remember we were happy when it got to like 0. Some of those days, the lows were like -8, and then at night
it was windy.
Well, it was -8 during the day, and then like -30 at night.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just remember my furnace run. And that was hell. That was 6 years ago. My furnace was a lot younger than that.
I was so happy I got a garage. I'd gotten a garage before that.
All right, well, here's Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hey, good morning, guys.
How you doing, Adam?
Well, not too bad. I'm not looking forward to snow that might be coming.
Yeah, but it'll melt during the day. I mean, it's going to be in the mid-40s. Don't let these alarmists scare you.
Yeah.
Weather
the captain
alarmists.
would be here telling you there'll be a foot of snow.
Oh, yeah, Captain will be under the desk with you and Molly, and you'll all be crying.
Staying here overnight.
Snow-ageddon. So everything will be fine, Adam. Now, I want to start with the men.
Actually, can I start with something else first, real quick?
Sure.
It's not related to Hawkeye stuff. Are you going to the Solon game in Clear Lake tonight?
I am.
Sub-state game.
That's a brutal drive.
That is.
Yeah, wouldn't you like to have a house on Clear Lake?
Yeah, it would be nice. I had a buddy in high school. His grandma and grandpa did. It's really nice up there.
Oh, yeah, two of my parents' really good friends had a cabin, and then my sister's husband's family have had a cabin since the 60s. So I've spent a ton of time up there. I love Clear Lake. Actually, their cabin's like 4 doors down from Jared DeVries.
How far of a drive is that from here?
It's Mason City.
Okay.
It's 8 miles west of Mason City.
240 probably?
Yeah, rough. Yeah. It's a lot easier to drive now, thank God, to 4-lane highways. It used to be a pain going from Iowa City to Clear Lake, but yeah, no, I grew up. I love that lake, and I like Okoboji too. But Okoboji's so deep; it's so cold all the time.
Yeah.
Clear Lake it's one of those. It's built on a butte or whatever, and it's
clear.
And it's no, it ain't clear.
Oh,
trust me, it ain't clear. There's times where they've had E. coli as their co-pilot up there, but like all lakes. But all right, let's start. We'll get to the women, but I want to start with the men, Adam, because I've had some people say to me, and they're not really. I don't think they mean it as critical. That they're just saying they think the men's team is done. They're just completely deflated. They don't have enough firepower. They just don't have it physically to win these games now. And the Northwestern game is proof of that. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, the Northwestern game, we really needed. I mean, you need Peyton and Josh Dix to really come through,
and they didn't.
And they didn't. I mean, it was not a great game, and I think some other guys are giving a ton of effort. You got guys like Riley Mulvey coming in and Bronze, and those guys are coming in and haven't played a lot all season, and they're really giving some good minutes, good effort. But at the end of the day, I mean, we need some of our heavy hitters to come through and help win some of these games. And it's a tough stretch, when you don't have Owen in there and you've had injuries. And I think Cooper would have been a really good addition this year. He's redshirting. There would have been some opportunities there, but yeah, it does feel like kind of the season's kind of folding here and shutting a little quicker than what we want.
Now, it's interesting. Michigan State, coming off a huge emotional win against Wisconsin, and then they also end the season against Michigan. Yep. So this is the ultimate trap game if you're Michigan State, but sometimes you can be too good to avoid the trap. I mean, you've seen Michigan State play. They got a ton of depth. They got 3 post players. They rotate in and out of there. I mean, nothing is impossible, but what's the key for the men? Is it just a matter of Caton and Josh have to come out firing? They have to make a bunch of threes. Is that their best? Is that their only real chance of winning this game?
We're going to need them to have a big game. You look at some of the games that, when Peyton's had 27 and we end up beating Washington, and that game was kind of a seesaw battle. And, we need somebody to step up and make big shots. Like you said, their depth is really good. I think the last couple of games that we've not came out on top, we're not able to dictate the pace. They're controlling the game. And we've kind of talked about that. We like to play fast and speedy, and, we still have to defend. But some of these games where they're really limiting some of our possessions and shots, I think Michigan State, they're a well-coached ball club. They're deep. They're strong. They're athletic. We're going to have to play really, really good basketball to stay in it. And, again, I think it's going to have to boil down to, you hate to finger point, but we're going to need a couple of those guys to have some good games.
And I think that's what Peyton wants. I think Peyton likes the pressure. Now we got to talk about the most important element of this game, Coach Izzo on the court.
Yes.
How much of a factor do you think?
He is on the court all the time. I got to be
complaining,
he's a big player.
I mean, how much do you think the Izzo factor
I've got to be Suter. He's always on the court.
And it's not fair.
He definitely gets a little bit of a longer leash. Granted, he's one of the most tenured guys, but we constant complaining, and that's his way of kind of working the officials. And again, I've always said they're a more physical team. I think year in and year out, he loves that physical defense.
Yeah,
maybe a little more handsy. They're gonna step out there and play their style until they call it different. And even if they call it different, sometimes they got the depth to keep playing physical and almost to the point where they swallow the whistle at some point. So, he's having a really good year. Like you said, they've had some emotional wins here, and then they got the look-ahead game to Michigan, which is going to be a huge matchup.
Yeah.
my hope is this could be a trap game, like you said, get a win, and then you get a chance to win at Nebraska. It's going to be a tough one, but there's a lot of implications there if you can win this next game.
I wish Nebraska would have beat Minnesota, to be honest with you, because I just don't see them losing back-to-back home games, especially on Senior Day, against two teams that really aren't very good. So I was kind of hoping the law of averages would work out to where they were able to. But Nebraska, they're not playing very well right now. And with the men, it's going to be interesting because let's say I've watched Michigan State at times play and they can't shoot threes. There's times where they can't. Let's say Iowa comes out and makes 13 threes and Michigan State makes. I mean, stranger things have happened to Adam. Is that the only way to do this? Is a huge discrepancy on three-pointers? Do you think that's the only chance Iowa has?
I think we definitely have to shoot it well from outside, especially we don't have a big scoring presence down low.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean we don't get down low buckets. I mean, I think we can still open up the offense, and there's opportunity there. But you look at Kingsbury coming in, Braun's coming in. Those guys hustle and play hard. So they're kind of the X factor. One of those guys goes off and gets 12 or 13 points and 8 or 9 rebounds. That's a whole other thing that one of these guys steps out and has a big game. That'll definitely help and take the pressure off. But yeah, shooting from the outside, we just can't go through those dry spells, and we've got to be shooting the ball at a high clip to stay in some of these games coming up.
So what did Northwestern do to limit Peyton tonight? I know the flow of the game was slow. They controlled tempo. Peyton only took 9 shots. From what you could tell, he made 2. Was it good defense, or was just the Iowa offense stagnant, or a little of both?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
He took a couple tough shots early. They didn't fall. He's one of those guys, I think when they come in bunches, and we just never really got him open. And I think, too, offensively, I mean, the ball sometimes got stuck or didn't move, and I think sometimes with a guy like Peyton, you're going to have to help him get some shots. Maybe you're coming off a double staggered or there's some flare screen action. He's got to get something on, to get himself open. He's not one of those. I'm not saying he can't. He can create his own shot, but when those guys are on him tight, you're going to have to do something to free him up to get open looks. And same with Dix. I think he seems to be almost fading a little bit more now, on some of his shots.
That's what I've been saying. Every shot he takes, even when he doesn't have to fade, he's fading.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's been I'm not his coach, but I would say, on some of those, you don't have to fade on it.
Exactly.
Especially late in the game or when your legs are a little fatigued. Everything's got a deep fade on it. So that's stuff that those guys can work on in the off season, but I don't know where that came from, where everything is – it just seems like when it even doesn't need to be, he's got that fade to it.
Yeah, and I was commenting on that a couple of weeks ago, and there are times where he's really used that fade to score, and it was really effective. But now it seems like it's just muscle memory. You know how when you shoot, it just gets to be – I just think his body's so used to fading, and I think there's times where his shot falls short because of that. But I'll tell you, Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford, if they're going to win Thursday, they're the two guys that are going to lead the way. And do you think – what kind of pace do you think Izzo's going to want this game? Do you think he's going to want to slow down Iowa, or do you think he's going to say, hey, they don't have enough firepower, let's run, let's see if they can keep up with us? What do you think his strategy is going to be, besides complaining to the officials?
Well, the hard part is, if they're rolling and they're wanting to go, I feel like we love running and we can do it. The problem is if we miss 2 or 3 shots or we don't get back or, something happens, we can go from being up 4 to down 8 pretty quick or down 12. We've seen those runs. And then on the flip side, we can make mount a pretty good comeback, which we've done this year. It's just, I would think Michigan State's going to control it the way they want to. They may just try to push this knowing that, we're not super deep. They are. And they may say, hey, it's a track meet, let's go.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that freshman, Jace Richardson, son of Jason – did you play against Jason Richardson?
I didn't.
He was
like Mo Pete and some of those guys.
Okay.
They obviously knew him and talked about him, but he was a fantastic athlete / basketball player. And now seeing his son, it's pretty cool to see these guys and the next generation coming through.
Well, and Jace is a good athlete. Not as athletic as his dad, but I think Jace is a more skilled player. He's really
more refined.
He's really a good player, and he's really given them a dimension. That transfer from Omaha, Frankie Fiedler. I mean, and then they've got 4 big guys that they rotate. Xavier Booker, former McDonald's All-American. He's probably 4th in that rotation. Yep. But, it's going to be a tall order. I mean,
Well, I think, too, like Izzo, you got to give him credit. In this day and age where everybody's kind of a me society and I want my numbers, I want my NIL deal, I think he's done a pretty good job of some of those guys that bought into, hey, I can come off the bench and really be a spark, and I've got a purpose on this team, and it doesn't, I think they're buying into what he's trying to do. And, again, that could be another team that makes a deep run just because they've got a lot of firepower, and for whatever reason, a lot of those guys have bought into his system and seem to be plugging away with it.
So if you had to pick a Big Ten team right now, men's side, to make a deep run in the tournament, who would your pick? Would it be Michigan State?
I mean, they'd be one of them, for sure.
You saw what Illinois did to Michigan.
Wisconsin's well coached. Again, you get into tournament play and you just don't turn the ball over. You make smart plays. You shoot it well. I mean, Wisconsin's always one of those teams to not really count out either.
Yeah. Did you see what Illinois did to Michigan?
I did.
Illinois is healthy now, and they're healthy and they're a good team. They had a little. The only
thing with Illinois is they'll go through stretches where they can't shoot it from outside. They fire up. I think the stat yesterday or the day before when watching that game, they throw up more threes than anybody.
And they miss more.
But then they're one of the worst percentage 3-point teams, like 350, in NCAA. They're going to have to correct that a little bit to make a deep run. But you're right. With everybody coming back and healthy, they're a dangerous team.
They really are.
So did they have a lot of guys out when they lost to Duke then? Is that what that issue was? Because I remember they got blown out by Duke.
No, but they had guys coming back that had been out. Duke's just better. I mean, now are they 30 points? I didn't happen to see any of that game, but did you happen to see any of that game, Adam?
I did a little bit. I mean, Duke they just ran and it was one of those where there was no looking back. And again, I think different situation, guys healthy. I mean, they talked with the one guy from Illinois. He was down a bunch of weight. Now he's starting to kind of build back up a little bit, get healthy, get his conditioning back. It's hard when you look at Iowa State with Onchilovich. I think he's a big integral part of that offense. And, even though they got a lot of other scorers around him, when he was out, Iowa State looked a little different.
They did.
Now that he's kind of back in the rotation, they looked well, and they looked good the other night. It is hard when you've got a missing link that kind of pops out for a while, and then you think there's a guy on the bench that's going to backfill, but it's different.
Well, mean, look at Iowa, Owen Freeman. They don't have any, as much as Bronze and those guys hustle and want to win, they're not Owen Freeman.
Nope.
And it's just been something that this team cannot overcome. 2 games left right now. I mean, I'll put y'all on the spot. Do you think they're going to make the Big Ten tournament, or are they going to be the third team left out?
I kind of think they're going to be left out.
I hate to say it.
I am with you. I can't see them winning any of these 2 guys. I thought they were going to win against Northwestern, and even Hunter had them losing. And Hunter was right. I was
wrong.
They were
going to lose too.
You guys did. I was the lover, and you're in the haters.
You were Mr. Optimist. You were Suitor.
I was Mr. Optimist. I was Suitor, but I don't see it. I just think Izzo's going to tell these guys, hey, we're playing a Big Ten team on their arena, on their floor Thursday. They deserve all of our attention. I mean, how much do you believe in the trap game stuff, Adam? You used to be at that level. Is there truth to that stuff, or is that just people trying to find storylines and explanations?
I think some of those on a quick turnaround coming off an emotional win, there could be. It just depends on the schedule. Again, I think the way the schedule used to look, we used to have those Wednesday, Saturdays, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
It was pretty it just felt pretty routine. But I do think, in this day and age when you got games sprinkled all over and, just the timing of things, it's not that they're not prepping or they're overlooking. It could be a matter of just the timing of everything, right? Where you play a game, it's emotional, it's a travel day, you come back, maybe you only have 1 day prep instead of 2. Some of those I can see as a trap game, but I don't know. I think coaches are so good with it's the next game and the breakdown. And if you watch, you've got a whole other coach that's scouting for the next game or 2 ahead. I felt like it was hard to overlook another team, especially in the Big Ten. It might be early season stuff when you've got some of these other schools coming in for a non-conference game. But in the Big Ten, you take everybody serious and, especially road games.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Hard to come by.
And you can guarantee that Izzo's telling his guys, hey, these guys run, and they've got 2 of the better scores in this conference. If they get on a roll at home, they're going to be hard to beat. Yeah, I think that'll be part of his approach to this thing. So yeah, I hate to say it. I thought Nebraska was better when I watched them the other day. They just did not play well. I mean, because I'll give Ben Johnson credit, Adam. He's done a hell of a job coaching that team. They're 4-4 on the road in the Big Ten.
I know.
I mean, it's just I mean, I know he's not the coach of the year, but I'll tell you what, he's shown me something. Now, let's shift to the women now. Nice win yesterday, 10-8. That just happens to be where I picked them to go this year. That was my most optimistic, and they did it. I think they won 8 out of their last 10.
Which is impressive. I mean, that's for some of the teams we had to play.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good stretch we went on, and I'd argue we haven't talked about it, but the UCLA game, last week, that was very winnable. Some things just did not go our way, which is kind of crazy when you got a home game and that kind of crowd. I felt like a lot went against us, but we're playing some really good basketball right now, and the key is just get in, win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, as many as you can, but then align yourself up for a run in the, when the tournament does really start. I think we can make a big push here.
No, I think they're capable of winning some games. I really do. And like I said, to me, in some ways, the pressure's off because to me, for Jan, the bar was just get this team to the tournament. They're in the tournament, solidly in the tournament. Now it's just a matter of building that resume and trying to go from 20 to 20. You win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament. Let's say you win 2 games in the NCAAs. Then you've got 24 wins and you're in the Sweet 16. Could you imagine? And that's not certainly out of their reach. I think the way they're playing, I mean, Lucy Olson is playing. She's been lights out these last 10 games. But I really like the way they're playing defense, Adam.
Yeah, they're connected. You can tell those girls it's a much different level than what they were earlier in the season. Again, Feuerbach just gives maximum effort. Some of these other ones are stepping up. I think it's a fun team. And you can tell they have fun out there.
Yeah, they do.
That's been our Iowa teams for how many years? But yeah, you can tell they're having fun out there. And when that's happening, they're smiling. It's good to see a lot of people contributing and making big shots. I mean, Sid stepping up these last couple games. I think that's huge going into tournament time.
The other thing I've noticed, Kylie's actually starting to make some perimeter jump shots. I mean, when she does that, man, she's really effective because her defense is impeccable. Every time she plays defense, I mean, she does such a good job of keeping the ball in front of her. She's got good length so she can reach and what have you. So going into this game against Wisconsin, I will say Wisconsin was competitive for a big stretch of that game yesterday, so that will have Iowa's attention. I don't think they're going to have a letdown. I don't you think they'll come out with a solid frame of mind, and I think they're going to take care of business. I'm pretty confident they're going to win Wednesday. Yeah,
I think so too. I think it'll be one of those, and it's hard to Pat, when they all know that they've got senior day and family, and you can play extremely well, but also you can come out a little flat too. There's a lot. Kind of the pressure and knowing it's your last time playing at Carver, there's a lot of emotional built up there. I think this next game we've seen them a couple times already this year. I know it is hard to beat a team multiple times, especially just playing them, but I think we're better in every position, and I think we'll be all right.
Did you guys see the end of the Ohio State-Maryland women's game?
No, what happened?
It was incredible. Ohio State. It was tied, I believe. It was tied, and their guard was dribbling, and she tripped. But she kept her dribble going. It looked like Curly Neal from the Globetrotters on the baseline, got back up, went and made an underneath layup. And I'm like, oh, my God, what a game-winning shot. But Maryland still had time. Maryland threw the ball in through their little point guard. She took like 3 or 4 dribbles and made like a 40-footer at the buzzer. Oh, wow. And Maryland ended up beating them. It was incredible. I'll tell you, Maryland's had a lot of injuries, but I think they're like 24-6.
I know. They've got a pretty good record.
She's done a hell of a job with them. And, Ohio State's like 24-5. So it's going to be a fun tournament. And don't you think, Adam, those other Big Ten teams are like, God, I'm so glad Caitlin Clark's not here anymore. Don't you think they're going into this thing thinking we don't have to deal with her anymore?
I'll tell you what, though, just looking at the Big Ten, especially on the women's side, like they had a stat sheet pulled up or just kind of the records and all the teams. It is loaded.
It is.
There's not very many nights off. There's a couple bottom feeders.
The bottom feeders are bad.
It's a grind.
Yeah, the bottom feeders are, you've got Purdue. It's amazing how far Purdue has sunk.
Yeah.
Purdue, Northwestern, and Rutgers, Penn State, too. They've got 4 bad teams, but then they've got 14, what I would say, good to very good teams. So it'll be interesting. And I was thinking maybe Notre Dame got pounded. I don't think there is. Connecticut's playing awfully well right now. But, Adam, you've seen USC and UCLA. They're beatable. They're both
beatable. They're beatable. I mean, that game that we watched the other night, there was a lot of missed shots.
There was.
Kind of got sloppy in play a little bit. We've played right with both those teams. We won one, and the other one I thought we had a pretty good shot to win at home against UCLA. I'm not really fearful of a lot of teams out there.
No.
There's not that, dominance of a South Carolina team or an LSU team.
No.
And again, I think NIL, and there's a lot of good coaches out there. There's a lot of good programs. I think you're seeing more parity where, good players are getting sprinkled all over, and women's basketball is definitely popular and going to another level. It's fun to see, going into a tournament time where there could be 5 or 10 different teams that could win it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think easily. Whereas in the last few years, it's either been like a Connecticut or a South Carolina, and Connecticut could very well. They're playing real well right now. They seem to be kind of peaking at the right time or what have you. But no, there is, and even going into this Big Ten tournament, I think you knew when Caitlin was there, Iowa's going to at least, who's going to play Iowa in the championship, and now she's not there. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do this. So, Adam, do you agree that guards win postseason games, or is that a false equivalency, or what? Do you think that's fair? Because I always treat, you're only going to go as far as your guards take you in these one and dones. Do you agree with that?
A little bit. I think it helps having a scoring point guard. I think a breakdown guard that can create for himself or others, whether it be guys or girls, I think is a huge benefit. I think at times you just, especially on our, with the Iowa team, I think there's been a need for somebody just to make a play when things break down.
Okay.
I think that's a big deal to have. But again, Caitlin was such a,
freak.
Freak that she could just do anything and create for others herself. When you needed a big bucket, the moment wasn't too big. She always stepped up. She's just special in all different ways, and she could literally carry a team all the way like she did to the 2 championship games.
When you say point guard play, I go back to the loss to Richmond. You remember what the difference in that game?
Yeah, yep.
The difference in that game. I'm not trying to single out Jordan Bohannon, but he didn't have a good game. And that Richmond point guard, I think he had 24 points. He dominated the game. He controlled.
They did.
Is that what you're talking about? That's the kind of okay.
Yeah, guys that can just put the ball in the hole and make plays and break down the defense when things do break down, right? You can run into a pro set, into a motion or some kind of set that you've got, but when things break down and it's late in the shot clock, when you got a stud that can just make plays and make things happen organically, that's huge. I think especially in tournament time when, it's hard to kind of scout some of these teams and you might, everybody's trying to, on the fly, do whatever they can, look at old game film, see what works, what doesn't. I just think good guard play does help.
And that's why for the women, between Lucy and Leah Guyton, I think the women have solid. I think they've kind of figured it out in the backcourt, don't you think? Right now,
I do, and I think Lucy. I like her. I would much rather have her take more shots.
Me too.
Kind of like Caitlin. But when she gets going, she's really tough to defend.
Yeah,
and
she's
got that mid-range game pull up, which I love. I was a mid-range guy. I love seeing those shots, and she's kind of owned that. That's kind of her kind of specialty. So, she's been playing really well at a high level. It'd be great to see her take this team and make a big run.
It would be. It would be neat to see that. And I'll tell you, I've never seen anyone who smiles more than her.
Yeah.
Even when she makes a mistake, she's just always seems happy. And it seems very genuine, too. Just from the.
I agree. I think some of those, when she missed those 1 free throws, I think we talked about it too on the air. Some of it can be a defense mechanism, especially with girls, right? Mm-hmm. Like uncomfortable situation, maybe a little bit embarrassed, natural reaction, smile. But she's happy out on the court all the time, and it's kind of funny to watch, even at free throws or certain things. Some of those girls kind of smiling at each other, or maybe discussing something or nudging each other. They are having fun, and that's. When you got teams that are playing like that and they're playing loose, that's always a good sign.
I enjoyed the post-game news conference. They were talking to Hannah Stelke and Lucy Olson, and Stelke was asking a question about her. He had a great game, incredible game yesterday.
About her free throws?
About the free throws.
I'm looking it up right now.
Was it the free throws, or was it the one I was talking about was the offensive rebound?
Well, no, she blamed herself.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking for.
She said I missed a lot of shots and got. I
actually tweeted that.
And then she said I wanted to do well for the seniors, and very audible from Lucy Olson. Aww. It was great. You could tell it wasn't a joke. It was genuine. It was great.
I go, what a humble way to describe her double-double. Here, I'll play it for you.
Yeah, I felt great. I was missing some shots, so a couple of those were just off my missed shots. But I think we all really wanted to get a win for the seniors. Their last game in Carver, so I think that boosted my energy a bit.
I just thought that was such a cool
Right
answer.
there, aw.
I just thought that was such a cool answer.
You got a plane in there?
Well, no, I hit something. The next video afterwards. Now with Twitter now, you play a video. Once it ends, it always goes to another
And
video.
it's some random thing you don't
That
follow.
has, some kid fighting in Brazil. I mean, it's just God. Twitter is such a cesspool. But
So
whatever.
we got this email just like in the last 10 minutes from the Big Ten Conference. They're going to announce the women's postseason awards tomorrow morning at like 11. All Big Ten, all defensive team, all freshman team, player of the year, defensive player of the year, freshman of the year, sixth player of the year, coach of the year. Any Hawkeyes on that list? Most of them probably not, but I'm thinking maybe all defensive, all freshmen. There might be somebody.
Oh, there'll be some. You mean they do second team?
Well, they do second, third team,
Yeah,
too.
there'll be some.
Okay.
I think Lucy's got a good chance to make first team.
First team is
I
actually.
do too. She's
I
got
think
some big games and big moments.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, there's some locks. I mean, you got like Cody McMahon from Ohio State. You've got I'm trying to think of who else would you consider a lock. I mean, there's some obvious ones that I'm not thinking of right now. Who's trying to think of who else you would say are just.
Well, Juju Watkins.
Well, yes, Juju. That's and that's Lauren Betts. Those are two locks. But I think after those two, maybe McNabb. But I think Lucy's got a chance to be one of those other three. I'm not. Do they do? I can't even remember. Do they do 5 or do they do 10 now for first team? Or no, they do.
That's a good question. With as many teams as we have, you got a point. I don't know how many they put on that, but if it's 5, I definitely think Lucy does still have a shot at that.
I do too.
Because of what she's done.
Yeah. I can't think of anyone from Nebraska who's done better. None of the 4 teams at the bottom that we've mentioned.
Well, Markowski's had some big games where she could certainly be listed on that,
But would she get it over Lauren Betts if they're going by position?
Yeah.
And I know they don't just go by position. Lucy's got a chance. I think at worst, Lucy's second team. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I think Hannah's second or third. She made second last year, but her stats are a little down this year and so. But I think Sida Falter's got to get something for her rebounding. I don't know if they'll put her.
I'm sure Feuerbach for the all defensive team. I mean, everybody knows she's kind of that defensive stopper, and
yes,
she's had some really good games, big steals. She's came through for us, and I think she's just labeled as one of those that's going to shut people down, and she's done a really good job in big games.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, I think some of the reasons why we were close in UCLA and then beating USC, she was a big factor.
Yes, and then Maryland, of course, Cheyenne, Sellers. There's about 8 or 9 players that'll have a good chance to making that. But yeah, obviously Juju and Lauren Betts are unanimous locks. I would think no questions asked. So, but yeah, so that
Lauren Betts was frustrated. If you watched that game when they played USC, I mean, she had a lot of travel calls, and they were really trying to get it down in there. And she was not that she was always forcing stuff, but she was getting frustrated there for a while in that first half.
Adam, I'm not that impressed with her supporting cast. And when I watch them in that Iowa, I'm like, God, some of these girls have slow deliveries on their shots. They're not very athletic. They shoot the 1930 set shot. I just wasn't that impressed.
But they've won a lot of games.
They have.
I mean, I'm with you. I thought the same thing. Very beatable.
Yes.
I'd rather play them than USC, just with the dynamic of Juju and what she can kind of bring to the table.
Yep,
they're certainly beatable, but they've got a big-time record, and they've won a lot of games.
I'd rather play USC and UCLA than Connecticut right now. Connecticut's playing real, and Connecticut's got 3 or 4 ball handlers that can make threes and whatever. I think right now they're playing as good as any team in the country. But like I said, they're in. I mean, they can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. They finished with a better than 500 record. Like I think it's been an okay season so far. I think she's met her bar. Now they just need to build and try.
Do they still have the rule that you can't play somebody from your own conference in the second round?
I'm not.
They used to have that.
Do you know, Adam? I'm not sure what the rule is.
I'm just curious.
I think to your point though, I think they try to avoid that.
Oh, they do.
Okay, I just want to know if Iowa can
but now
possibly
with
be
these
an 8 or
super
9
conferences, it's going to get harder to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, these conferences keep
That's
growing.
why I thought they might have gotten rid of it.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know I'm biased, but I think Drake at 27-3, regardless what they do in Arch Madness, to me deserves to be in the NCAA.
They do.
But I don't know if they don't win that thing. They may not.
Well, it's hard. That conference just, I mean, I used to love that Missouri Valley.
It's not as good as it used to
be.
be.
I follow all those schools, and I was a big fan of the Missouri Valley when you had Creighton and Wichita State and Southern Illinois and then Drake. I mean, there were so many good teams in there. Bradley. Now it's down a little bit, and hopefully Drake doesn't get. It's not their fault.
No.
dominated that conference and played really well out of season or out of conference, they do deserve a at-large bid for sure.
And then hopefully the Valley, if Drake does it, because I got a bad feeling Drake's not going to win the tournament. I just had the postseason, but that's kind of how I am. My glass is often half empty.
Mr.
But
Pessimist.
I've been so impressed with what Ben McCollum has done with that team. I mean, Adam, have you watched him at all? It's not the funnest style.
No, I have. They're fun. I mean, even when they played you and I,
but they're slow though.
Great ball game.
They play slow offense, but they do it. They do it well. They kind of remind me of Licklider's Butler teams. You know, they're very deliberate in what they do. Great point guard play, but they're not going to beat you 90 to 85.
Yeah,
and
he's got a method. I mean, what he did down at Division II, Northwest Missouri State, to be that competitive and win that many times, and they were just dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys buy into his system and they play well. They don't make a lot of mistakes.
They don't.
That guard is good.
He is
6'5" kid. He is smooth out there, and they run a really nice offense and they take advantage when they need to. And they're they're a tough team to beat.
What's interesting now, their students now. They dress like the head coach wears the same attire. He wears a white button-down, really starchy, tight shirt with a stiff tie. So now a lot of the Drake students are dressing that way too. But no, it's cool to see my alma mater having that type of success. And I'll tell you what, Tom Davis is the one that remember, before Tom went there, Adam, Drake was bad for a lot of years. They went through head coaches like Tom Abeto-Marco, Rudy Washington, but then Dr. Tom gets there, and then Keno gets there, and they've been pretty good ever since then, and it's just fun to watch. Now
I'm drawing a blank. The one I really liked him. He ended up going to Penn State and wasn't an assistant out there. Started with a K.
Kurt Kanaski.
I
liked him too, but it just didn't work.
It didn't work, but he had some of the momentum there. He had got like David Newman, and there was the other big from Des Moines at Hoover. He got in some of those guys, and there was I thought a moment there where Drake was going to kind of turn the corner, and then it didn't. And then some of those guys, you know, when he left, he ended up going on staff, and I got to know him a little bit. One summer I played in a Big Ten All-Star deal, and Penn State the coaching staff there kind of ran that team and took us overseas. Kurt was ultimate professional. Mm-hmm. He knew the game. He was a great guy. I loved playing for him. I thought he was going to do it. And then, to your point, when Dr. Tom came in, the whole program shifted. From that point on, they've continued to build and get better and made a solid presence in that valley.
I mean, they lost Nico Medved to Colorado State, and he's winning out there. But no, it's been fun to watch.
I think they made the right hires. You know what I mean? Like with Nico, that was a good name at the time. It was a good job. You just had to hold on to him, and obviously money and everything else factors in. But Des Moines is a great city. Drake's a great university. I mean, it's for a recruiting tool. It's a destination certainly for these guys to come in and showcase.
No, I agree.
So hopefully, again, he can kind of keep this going and continue to get his own guys in there. And I know he brought a lot from the Division II level, and you haven't really seen a dip. He's got a knack for finding players that fit his system.
And now at Drake, at some point they have to ask themselves, how serious do they want to be? At some point they're going to maybe have to pay a little bit more money to keep. Obviously, they're not going to be able to do the $2.5 million or whatever, but they may have to dig deep because that arena's starting to. I mean, they're probably starting to make some money because every time I watch them play at home now, that arena is got a lot of fans in there, so it's fun. And I'm trying to think if we covered.
Well, and Keno, I liked Keno a lot too.
Yeah.
You know, he obviously went out to, was it Providence?
He got $6 million.
You know, it's hard at that time you get offered a big contract with a bunch of security on it, you know, so many years guaranteed. I get the reason to leave, but I think some of these guys are finding out the grass isn't always greener.
Exactly.
If you've got a spot and you're doing well and you get your recruiting honey hole kind of set up and life, you can always go chase the money, but it doesn't mean your career is going to be any longer.
Well, you know, your former head coach, Alford, to me, it's easy to say with hindsight, but he should have stayed at New Mexico.
I agree.
I mean, he was making comparable money then. They were winning. And then, of course, it's hard to turn down UCLA, but you're right, though. Some fits just don't work. And it'll be interesting to see if Drake can keep McCollum. Because, you know, there's a lot of Iowa fans that are convinced that Fran's gone and it's either going to be Darian DeVries or Ben McCollum. I don't know if it's that simple and if it's that finalized or what have you, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Adam, I wouldn't begin to put you on the spot about if you think Fran's going to be back next year. I mean, I think
it's hard to say.
It's
hard because he's got a lot going on, you know, from a family standpoint, and he's always been – the one thing I find interesting is he's been a great dad. He's coached those kids.
Yes.
He's watched them, supported them. I think it would be really hard to have one that goes off that you're going to be kind of disconnected to. It's hard when you're running a program and you're recruiting and you're doing all the things. It's going to be hard to – certainly going to be able to watch games or rewatch games that he's playing in, but it may be hard to have your youngest, last one going through that you're just not present for.
No, I agree, yeah. And the fact that he'll be 66 in May, I mean, common sense says, yeah, this might be it. I mean, because
although he's a young 66.
He is.
He's got a fire, and, I think, people said his demeanor is different on the sideline, which I would agree. But, again, I think he's kind of turned the corner on stuff, and guys mature in their coaching career, and maybe, he was told some of the stuff that happened last year with Michigan State, hey, we can't be doing that. And I think he's gotten fired up when he needs to, but it has been different than the last 15 years. And I think people are like, well, is there a change or what's going on? But he's got one of the top recruiting classes coming in, so it's not like these guys are losing momentum and not pushing forward.
I actually wrote that a while back.
He's got a heck of a class coming in.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. If you're convinced he's leaving, then these recruits obviously don't think he's leaving. So it's just one of these things. Well, let's see what happens. Let's let it play out. If he does end up deciding mutual parting of the ways, like I said, I still think his body of work gets him another year, but that's Beth's decision. We'll see what happens. But you're right, though, about the family aspect of it, because chances are Connor's still going to be assistant at Butler next. Most of his family will be out there because Margaret is going to be trying to watch as many of Jack's games as she can. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Plus, Adam, I think Fran would be a great studio guest analyst for like the Big Ten Network. I think he would be great in that type of job, don't you?
I do. But again, he's done nothing to warrant somebody, saying he needs to leave.
I'm with you.
He's a great guy. He's been a good coach. He's turned this program around. He's got good players. Look how many NBA guys, we've thrown in there. And I was talking to somebody the other day. He's really done a great job of developing players.
Yes.
Whether, you give him all the credit or the staff, at some point he's getting credit. You've taken guys like Aaron White and, Luka Garza, and you've got the Keegan brothers, or the Murray brothers. It's crazy to think of, some of the talent that maybe were overlooked, and we get these guys and make them Player of the Year candidates.
Now the critics going to say he didn't win any NCAA games with those guys, or enough. That's what they're going to say, and then they're going to point to the fan support right now. And those are both issues. But I'm with you.
Both issues, but it's weird in this day and age. It's not just us. There's a lot of programs out there with just
empty
gym. The crowd is different. They're not it's not what it used to be. But again, I think a lot of that boils down to the girls and the women.
Yeah.
They've kind of taken some of that fan support, and there's only so many games you can get to in a week. I think some of them have sided with, well, we're going to make the girls' game a priority instead of the boys, even though they got season tickets for both.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cold, hard truth. I think people are they've drawn a line in the sand, and they're going to the women's more than the men's. But it's hard to break that when you had a generational player like Caitlin come through.
Well, and I've had old-timers also tell me, back in the 80s, you knew they were going to play probably on Thursday or Saturday. You could sort of schedule your life around your favorite team. Now, Iowa played Northwestern at 8-12 on a Friday night. It's just that's the other thing. There's so much inconsistency in scheduling. I've had people tell me it's just hard to keep up.
Well, I was just going to say we got to wrap up because
we do.
Ray wants it in a couple minutes, but I want to end on this. Watching the game on Friday night, there were commercials for the College Basketball Crown. I had to look it up. 16-team.
I heard about this.
16-team postseason tournament in Las Vegas for teams that don't make the NCAA or NIT. Top two teams that aren't in those tournaments from the Big Ten, Big 12, and Big East, and then at-large teams. So could Iowa miss the Big Ten tournament but make this tournament if enough Big Ten teams get to the other tournament?
I don't know.
We don't make the Big Ten. I don't know if we can make this one.
I don't know what the qualifications are.
It just said the top two teams that aren't in the NCAA or NIT from those three conferences.
Oh, God. Could
Iowa be one of the top two that isn't in the NIT?
They could. It just depends on how we finish out along with
another
the
week
rest
for
of the team.
Suter in Vegas.
Yeah. I'll have Suter and Ann cover the games for me. Well, listen, Adam, we got Sugar Ray coming on with high school. But I did hear something kind of depressing before we go, and I know you didn't play high school football, but Des Moines Hoover is not going to be fielding a football team this year.
Oh, wow.
All that. That's crazy.
Their players are going to have to go to Roosevelt to play football. Oof. They're going to have to. They're going to go to Hoover, of course, for school, but that's sad, man. And I just think that's the beginning. I think we're going to see more of this. They don't have enough. That's a 4A school without enough participation for football. That's scary, isn't it?
Well, and you see it in a lot of even 3A programs,
Yes.
teams that just aren't fielding a bunch of people out there. But, like Solon, for instance, or Regina, or some of these West Branch, there's a ton of kids that go out, but those are successful programs.
Yes.
I think when you go on that, it's a slippery slide when you start losing and having bad years or bad records. Then it becomes it's not the popular thing to do. Hey, why would I go get my head smashed in? We maybe win one game a year.
It's also the population movement too, Adam. It's just
correct.
I mean, Des Moines Hoover back in my day, they were pretty good in football. But my day, Waukee was Class 2A. Now there's 2 5A schools in Waukee.
I know.
It's
I told people when I was in high school, we played Waukee, and they were in our Raccoon River Conference in 3A. And within like 2 years, boom, they were in CIML. I mean, they just exploded.
It did. So, well, listen, Adam, great stuff as usual. I'll stay in touch. We'll do so another one postseason as the women keep going on. We'll try to figure one out for next week. And thanks again. And guys, anything else?
I think we're good.
All right, Adam. Thanks. Have a good week.
Hey, have a good week, guys. Go Hawks. See ya.
All right, thanks a lot, Adam, and thank you guys for coming in and doing Hawkfanatic today. Get your access to Hawkfanatic anytime. It's free. And I'm Jim Hunter. We're going to send it now to Des Moines.